My family tried to shame and intimidate me into co-signing their dream gym loan, cornering me in my own home when I refused. But the son they treated as disposable ended up holding the deed to the house they were counting on inheriting. I, Ethan, 32, male, and I swear my whole life I've been living in my sister's shadow. Fiona is the golden child, always has been the type who could trip over her own shoelace, and Dad would call it graceful. Meanwhile, I could get straight A's, stay out of trouble, and it was like, meh, could have tried harder. And before you wonder where Mom was in all this, she passed when I was 10. Fiona was 15, cancer. It wrecked us, but not in the way you'd think. Dad kind of locked into Fiona as his entire pride and joy after that, like she was the one thing left that he couldn't lose. Me, I became more like background noise, the spare. And I got fed, clothed. He showed up to parent-teacher nights. But the affection, the cheering, always aimed at her. Fiona wasn't cruel back then. I'll give her that. She'd boss me around sometimes, but she also made my lunch when Dad forgot, helped me with homework, that kind of thing. Back then, I actually thought she had my back. But somewhere between high school and adulthood, she realized being the favorite came with perks. And let's just say she didn't exactly fight it. When I went off to college, 4 years later, it was on scholarships and working part-time gigs. Fiona had her tuition partly covered because Dad pulled every favor he could to get her extra grants. Me, I was independent, which is code for you're on your own, kid. And honestly, I didn't complain too much. I figured if I wanted a future, I'd just have to grind harder. Fast forward a few years. I graduate, land a stable job in project management. Not glamorous, but steady, good pay, decent benefits. I saved, bought myself a modest condo in the city by the time I was 29. Nothing fancy, but it was mine. No CO signers, no shady loans, just me grinding it out. Meanwhile, Fiona, yeah, she bounced. Changed majors twice in college, switched jobs like people switch phone plans. She had this confidence, though. Then Gary shows up. She meets him at some backyard barbecue, and 6 months later, they're engaged. At first, I didn't hate the guy. He was charming in that sales bro way, always talking about big opportunities and financial freedom. I thought it was just talk. Dad loved him right away because Gary would go on and on about how amazing Fiona was and how he was going to give her the life she deserved. I should have known right then. Any guy who talks that much about deserving usually means he's going to use someone else's wallet to pay for it. Gary's working sales at some telecom company, commissions-based. Some months they're eating steak, some months ramen. Fiona got a job at a boutique clothing store, mostly for the discounts, not the paycheck. But to Dad, they were the perfect power couple. A year later, after Dad pulled strings, she slid into a marketing coordinator role at a mid-size firm, company card and all. Here's where things really started grinding my gears. Every time we had a family get-together, Gary would steer the conversation toward money. Not in a curious way, more like probing, asking what my salary was, how much my condo was worth, if I was leveraging equity. I'd laugh it off, but it bugged me. Dad never called him out. If I ever asked a question like that, Dad would have smacked me upside the head for being nosy. And then Fiona started changing. My sister, who used to love thrift stores and making bracelets, suddenly cared about designer bags and fancy vacations. She'd make little comments about my car, like, "Don't you think it's time you upgrade? A guy your age should be driving something nicer." I brushed it off, but in the back of my head I'm thinking, lady, I bought this car outright. It doesn't eat my paycheck every month. Maybe you should try it. I didn't realize it then, but that setup, the favoritism, the golden child pedestal, Gary's obsession with money, it was all just waiting to explode. And when it finally did, it wasn't just arguments or silent treatments. It got violent. But I'll get there. All I'll say for now is this. If you think blood automatically means loyalty, you've never had a family like mine. The whole thing kicked off on what was supposed to be a normal Sunday. I drove out to Dad's place for dinner. He lives in the same old house we grew up in, except it looks like a museum now. Same ugly carpet, same squeaky stairs, same recliner that's basically molded to his shape. He still treats Fiona's old bedroom like a shrine. By the way, mine got turned into a storage closet before I'd even finished college. Anyway, I walk in, and the vibe is weird. Fiona's sitting at the table looking like she's about to announce she's running for office. Gary's next to her, all smiles, pulling out chairs, topping off Dad's drink. He only acts that polite when he wants something. Sure enough, after we get through the small talk and lasagna, he clears his throat like he's about to deliver the State of the Union. "So, Ethan," he starts, "Fiona and I have been working on something big. We're going to open a business." He leans back like he just solved world hunger. Fiona's nodding like a cheerleader. Dad's got this proud smile like he's watching his favorite kid win an award. I cut him off before he could launch into a TED Talk. Let me guess. You need money. Gary laughs too loud like I just told the funniest joke ever. Not money, just a little help. See, I've been researching the fitness industry. The area is desperate for a new high-end gym. And with my sales experience, I know I can blow it up fast. Fiona's got the design eye. I've got the drive. And your dad's been super supportive. Only issue is the bank wants another guarantor. Your dad already co-signed my old scooter business loans. And with that history plus my job change, they want more assurance. He pauses for effect. I just look at him. Ethan. Fiona jumps in. All it means is you co-sign the loan. You won't pay a cent. It's just paperwork. We'll handle everything. Now here's the thing. I'm not stupid. Just paperwork is the same line people use right before you end up bankrupt or on Judge Judy. So I ask the obvious question. How much? Gary's smile tightens. $500,000. I almost choked on my water. $500,000 for a gym in a town that already has like 5. Fiona rolls her eyes. This isn't just a gym. It's a lifestyle center. Juice bar, spa, the whole package. Don't be so negative all the time. Negative. That's what they call it when you use basic math and common sense. Dad clears his throat. Son, sometimes you have to take risks for family. Fiona and Gary are building a future. You should be proud to help. There it was. The golden child effect in full swing. If I brought up $500,000, Dad would tell me to quit daydreaming. Fiona says it, and suddenly it's the second coming of Elon Musk. I set my fork down. Look, I'm glad you guys are excited. But CO signing means if you don't pay, I'm on the hook. That's not a little thing. That's my house, my savings, my life. Gary waves his hand like I'm a kid scared of the dark. Come on, man. I'm in line for a regional director promotion. Once that kicks in, we'll be golden. The bank just needs some extra assurance until then. I couldn't help myself. Yeah, funny how promotions only ever exist in the future with you. Remember the last strategic move you made? How'd that work out? His smile cracked for half a second. Fiona shot me a look like I just insulted her dog. Dad slammed his fork down. Enough, Ethan. Your sister's asking you for support, and you're throwing insults. Where's your loyalty? Loyalty? That's the word they love to throw around when they want to use you. Dad, I said slowly. Loyalty doesn't mean signing my life away because Gary wants to play Monopoly in real life. You raised me to be smart with money. Remember that whole speech about never risking more than you can afford to lose? He glared at me like I'd quoted scripture wrong. This is different. This is family. Gary leans in, voice low. So, what's the deal, man? You think we can't do it? You think you're better than us with your little 9 to 5? I stared him dead in the eye. I think you want me to bankroll your fantasy, and the answer is no. Gary leaned forward, smile gone. You know what your problem is? You're weak. You hide behind your safe little job, your budget car, your boring condo. Guys like you don't build anything. You just play it safe and think you're smart for it. I laughed once. No humor in it. Yeah, well, last time I checked, playing it safe hasn't left me begging my brother-in-law to cover $500,000. Silence. Fiona looked like she wanted to throw her fork at me. Dad shook his head, muttering about how disappointing I was. Gary just sat back, smirking like he'd already decided this wasn't over. Dinner ended on that awkward note. No dessert, no goodbyes. Just me driving home, replaying the whole thing in my head, half pissed, half laughing. Because here's the truth. I knew this wasn't just going to end with me saying no once. People like Gary and Fiona don't hear no, they hear not yet. And Dad, he'd back them until the house collapsed, and I was right. That dinner was just round 1. They weren't done with me, not even close. If you think no is the end of a conversation, then you've clearly never dealt with my family. For them, no is just a speed bump, a chance to rev the engine louder and pretend the rules don't apply. Fiona was the first to kick it up a notch. She texted me one night at 11 p.m. paragraphs long, like she was writing a novel. You're letting Gary down. You're letting me down. Mom would have never wanted this. You were supposed to take care of me after she passed. You failed me as a brother, failed her. She's the one living in a townhouse Gary can't even afford, posting Instagram stories about manifesting, abundance, while crying broke behind the scenes. But sure, I'm the villain for not signing my name onto their fantasy. But the cherry on top, Gary. He decided showing up at my job was a good idea. Picture this. I'm walking into the lobby and there he is, leaned against the counter in a tight blazer like he's Jordan Belfort. My receptionist looked 2 seconds away from calling security. We ducked into a conference room, and he slapped down a folder full of loan paperwork like it was a winning lottery ticket. You sign this and we're all set. No one's going to care. It's just paperwork. I slid the folder back across the table. Gary, you've used the word just so many times it's starting to sound like you don't even know what a contract is. His jaw tightened. You'll regret this. You're throwing away family for nothing. Family doesn't need to use threats. I shot back. That's a loan shark move, which, now that I think about it, fits you perfectly. He stormed out, muttering, "Weak loser," under his breath, loud enough for the receptionist to hear. She gave me this wide-eyed look when I walked back out like, "That's your brother-in-law?" All I could do was shrug. At this point I realized something. They weren't just asking anymore, they were demanding. And worse, they felt entitled to my help, like my entire existence was just a resource for them to drain. Fiona proved it a few nights later, when she actually came to my apartment uninvited, knocked until I opened, then shoved her way in, holding a stack of envelopes. "Bills, you're paying them," she said, dropping them on my coffee table. I blinked. "Excuse me, you owe us this after everything I've done for you." "After Mom, after raising you half the time because Dad was too busy working." I picked up one envelope, opened it. Credit card bill, $7,200 balance. Louis Vuitton, Sephora, a vacation booking. I looked at her and said, "Yeah, this really screams raising me. Funny, I don't remember needing a Gucci belt to get through algebra." She went red. "You're such a selfish bastard. No wonder Mom always liked me more." That one stung a little, I won't lie. But instead of snapping, I just smiled and said, "Cool. Then maybe ask our deceased mom to co-sign the loan because I'm still not doing it." She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the frame shook. By then I knew I needed backup. I called Tyler, my best friend since forever, now a lawyer. I told him everything, the texts, the calls, Gary showing up at work, Fiona dropping bills on my table like I was their personal bank. He went quiet, then said, "Document it. All of it. Screenshots, audio, times, dates. You're going to need proof when this blows up. And Ethan," his voice got serious, "don't ever let Gary corner you alone. That guy's one no away from doing something stupid." I thought he was exaggerating. I thought, sure, Gary's a manipulative jerk, but he's not violent. I was wrong because all this, the calls, the uninvited visits, the guilt trips, was just the warm-up. The real fireworks happened the night they all showed up at my apartment door. And that was the night things crossed from entitled to dangerous. You ever hear a knock at the door and instantly know it's bad news? Like your gut just drops before you even check the peephole. That was me that night. It wasn't even 8 p.m. I was still in sweats, heating up leftovers when the pounding started. Not knocking, pounding. I looked through the peephole and my stomach turned. Gary, Fiona, and behind them, my dad. Great. The trifecta of entitlement. I cracked the door but didn't open it wide. "What do you want?" Gary grinned like he owned the place. "Funny you ask. We're here to talk." Then he shoved the door open with his shoulder, and suddenly all three were inside like it was their apartment. Fiona dropped her purse on my counter like she lived there. "You've been ignoring us." I crossed my arms. Or maybe I said no and you just don't get what that word means. Should I tell you it in 7 languages? Dad's eyes narrowed. "Watch your tone. You don't talk to your sister like that." "Oh, right." I shot back. "Because she's a saint. Dropping her dead on my table like it's my responsibility. Totally normal behavior." Gary stepped closer, fake calm in his voice. "Look, man, you've got the money. We know you do. You're just being difficult. Sign the papers, co-sign the loan, and we're done. Nobody has to keep hassling you. Nobody has to keep hassling me," I repeated. "So, you admit this is harassment?" Fiona rolled her eyes. "Stop acting like a victim. We're family. Family helps each other. I couldn't help it." I laughed. Funny definition of help. I thought help was voluntary. Not 3 people cornering me in my own living room. That's when Gary's mask finally dropped. He stepped up so close I could smell the cologne he probably financed on a credit card. His voice went sharp. "You're weak. Always hiding behind your little savings account and your boring job. Guys like me take risks. You just sit there and think you're better than everyone." I tilted my head, gave him a half smile. "If being weak means not being dumb enough to gamble away $500,000, then yeah, I'll take weak." That's when he shoved me. Not a playful shove, not even an angry poke. A full-body shove that sent me stumbling back onto the couch. Before I could get up, Fiona chimed in, venom in her voice. Gary's right. You've always been a leech. Mom saw it. Dad sees it. You don't care about anyone but yourself. I looked at her, still catching my breath, and said, yeah. Then explain why the selfish leech is the only one you all run to when you're broke. That's when Dad stepped in. My own father. He didn't check Gary. Didn't tell Fiona to calm down. He looked down at me like I was dirt. You think you're smarter than us? That's the problem. You think just because you play it safe, you get to look down on your own family. And then I'll never forget this. He kicked me, not hard enough to break anything, but hard enough to send pain shooting through my ribs. I froze for a second because in that moment, it clicked. This wasn't just Gary being Gary. My own dad and sister were fine with me being roughed up if it meant I'd sign their stupid papers. Sign it, Gary snarled, tossing the folder onto my coffee table. Sign it and we walk away. I held my stomach and looked at the paperwork, then looked back at them. You know what's funny? I said, voice shaky but steady. Even if I wanted to sign, I wouldn't because the three of you, you're not worth ruining my credit for. Gary didn't stop at the shove. He pulled his fist back and swung, catching me across the jaw. My head snapped sideways, pain buzzing through my teeth. Before I could even recover, Fiona leaned in like a vulture, screaming in my face. Why do you insist on ruining this family? Why do you want to see us suffer? I spit a bit of blood and glared up at her. Funny. Thought ruining the family was more of a team effort on your part. That set her off even more. She slapped at me, not hard, but frantic. All rage and no aim. Gary shoved me back down when I tried to stand. And the worst part, Dad just stood there, arms crossed, not stopping it, not protecting me. He even muttered, if you just signed, none of this would be happening. That was the moment I realized I wasn't dealing with family anymore. I was dealing with people who thought I was property. Gary cracked his knuckles, leaning over me. Last chance, man. Sign it or you'll regret it. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand and looked up at him, sarcastic, even though I was half dizzy. What are you going to do, repo my couch? That's when he swung again. This one landed square on my cheekbone, and I saw flashes of light in the corner of my eyes. The room tilted for a second, and before I could even process the pain, Fiona was shrieking like a banshee. Gary grabbed my shirt and pulled me halfway up from the couch like he was going to throw another punch. My head was spinning and my jaw was already numb. Dad muttered from the corner, still arms crossed like a disappointed coach watching a bad play. Just sign it, son. You're only making things harder on yourself. And I wanted to say something smart, something sharp enough to cut through all three of them. But the dizziness made words stumble in my throat. Before I could answer, the apartment door creaked open. Yo, a familiar voice called out. I brought chips. If you animals ate all the pizza rolls before I got here, we're fighting. Tyler. He stepped 2 feet in and froze. His eyes landed on Gary's fist balled in my shirt. My lips split, Fiona shrieking inches from my face and Dad looming like the world's most useless referee. The grocery bag in his hand slid to the floor with a thud. Well, he said slowly, this is definitely not Mario Kart night. Gary turned. Who the hell are you? Tyler blinked at him. Who am I? The guy whose evening you just ruined. Also, the guy who's going to sue the crap out of you in about 5 minutes. He walked in casually like he just walked into a surprise birthday party instead of a mugging. Tyler, I croaked. My voice sounded pathetic, cracked, and thin. But I managed it. Yeah, I see you, he said, waving me off like I'd spilled a drink on his carpet. What did I tell you, man? You let clowns in your apartment and they're going to juggle your face and here we are. Fiona snapped at him. This is none of your business. This is family stuff. Tyler smirked, setting his phone on record without even hiding it. Ah, family stuff, of course. Nothing screams family like 3 psychos cornering one guy over money. Classic Hallmark vibe right here. Gary shoved me back onto the couch and squared up to Tyler. You better get out before you regret it. Tyler didn't even flinch. Buddy, you're threatening a lawyer in his natural habitat. Do you realize how stupid that is? You're basically handing me billable hours, Dad growled, stepping forward finally. This is between my kids. Stay out of it. Tyler raised an eyebrow. Funny because from where I'm standing, this looks less like a sibling disagreement, and more like felony assault, conspiracy, and he gestured lazily at my swollen face, attempted battery. But hey, what do I know? I only passed the bar. Gary tried to puff himself up, but Tyler just smiled. Not nervous, not scared, amused. That's what unsettled them. Listen, Tyler said, voice flat, but still playful. I came here to destroy my buddy in Smash Bros, not to see him destroyed in real life. So here's how this goes. You're going to leave now, or I'm going to make sure the cops get a recording that makes this little inheritance-obsessed soap opera go viral. Fiona scoffed. You think anyone would believe you? Tyler grinned at her like she just walked into his trap. Oh, sweetheart. They won't need to believe me. They'll see it. Hi. Wave to the camera. He held up his phone. Her jaw dropped. She actually tried to slap the phone out of his hand, but he danced back like it was a game. Nice try. 0 points. Try again. Gary clenched his fists, but Tyler leaned closer to me, voice dropping into a teasing whisper. Man, you look like crap. Next time, warn me before you decide to star in Fight Club. Even in pain, I couldn't help but snort a laugh. Blood and sarcasm. That's all I had left. Dad hissed. We'll be back. You can't hide behind lawyers forever. Tyler tilted his head. Sure, come back, but next time bring bail money. He stood there staring them down until finally Gary tugged Fiona toward the door. She was still screeching about betrayal, about me ruining everything, about me being ungrateful. Dad lingered the longest, glaring at me like I'd committed some great sin against him. Then he followed them out without a word. The door slammed. Silence. Tyler had already called 911. We filed the report that night, and urgent care documented my injuries. The hall cam above my door caught them pushing in. We pulled the footage for the report. I slumped back, groaning. Tyler walked over, set his phone on the table, and whistled low. Dude, I've seen bar fights with less drama. What the hell was that? I coughed a laugh. Family bonding. He shook his head, grabbing the bag of chips off the floor and tossing me a pack of ice instead. Nah, that wasn't family. That was 3 freeloaders auditioning for a mugshot. And lucky for you, I got front row seats. Recorded the whole thing. You're welcome. I pressed the ice to my jaw, wincing. So what now? Just lick my wounds and pretend this didn't happen? Tyler smirked. Oh, hell no. Now we're going to end this. You've been letting them treat you like their personal ATM long enough. They wanted to play dirty. Fine, let's play dirtier. And by the time I'm done, they'll wish they just stuck to Monopoly. He leaned back, pulling out his laptop like it was game time. But first, Mario Kart. Because you look like you could use an ego boost after Gary turned your face into abstract art. I groaned. But for the first time all night, I actually felt a little relief. If anyone could turn this nightmare into payback, it was Tyler. Tyler pulled his laptop onto the coffee table like he was about to hack the Pentagon. All right, he said, cracking his fingers dramatically. These clowns think fists and yelling work. Let's see how they like math, paperwork, and government forms. Way scarier than Gary's haymaker. I sat back with an ice pack pressed to my cheek. What are you, my personal Batman now? More like your sarcastic accountant who actually passed the bar, he shot back. Now shut up and let me work. He started typing like a man possessed. Over the next 2 weeks, he pulled what he could from public records, UCC liens, county judgments, and corporate filings, and started stitching the picture together. Your brother-in-law, he said, spinning the screen toward me, is basically a fraud factory. Remember that dumb scooter rental thing he tried to launch? Public UCC filings and a county judgment show he took business loans that list your dad as guarantor, then defaulted. If this hits court, Gary's staring at collections and maybe fraud. Depends on what the bank paperwork shows. I whistled. So he's broke, shady, and stupid, Tyler corrected. The best combo for ruining someone. Then he pulled up Fiona. After your dad pulled strings, she slid into a marketing coordinator role. Company card and all. I'll send HR a packet of dates and merchant names that match her social posts, spas, resort day passes. They'll pull the actual receipts. And Dad? I asked, already knowing it wouldn't be good. Tyler grinned. This is my favorite part. He's years behind on taxes. There are already state tax liens recorded, and those old co-signed loans turned into judgments and liens. We'll submit a tip to the State Revenue Department and to the IRS. It's not instant, but once the machines spin up, they don't stop. I blinked. How do you even know how to do this? Law school, baby, he said smugly. Also, your family's too dumb to cover their tracks. A lot of this is in public records. The rest came in as tips. Over the next few weeks, the dominoes started to fall. Gary got hit first. Debt collectors started blowing up his phone, and Tyler filed a civil suit for damages. After we made the police report, which stacked more legal fees onto his already sinking ship, he tried posting on Facebook about being betrayed by family. But Tyler made sure the creditors saw it. Within a few weeks, Gary had liens filed against him, and his car got repossessed right off his driveway. Guess he can start a scooter business again? Tyler joked when we heard about it. Then Fiona's turn. Tyler sent a neat packet to her HR department, screenshots of her posts, plus matching dates and merchants. HR pulled the actual receipts. Within 2 weeks, they called her in, and shortly after, she was escorted out of the office with a box in her hands. She showed up at my apartment screaming that I'd ruined her life. I just leaned against the doorframe and said, "Nah, you ruined it with hot stone massages." Tyler nearly choked on his soda when he heard that comeback later. Then came Dad, the big one. First, the State Revenue Department notices hit. Then, a couple of months later, the IRS letters started landing. Years of late filings and penalties, plus those old co-signed loans that had turned into judgments. Tyler submitted the tips anonymously, but it didn't take long for Dad to put 2 and 2 together. He stormed up to my door, face red, waving the letter like it was fake. "You think this scares me?" he yelled. "No," I said calmly. "The part where they seize your accounts will scare you." He tried to argue, but his phone started buzzing with unknown numbers. "Collections, lawyers," Tyler whispered from behind me. "That's the sound of karma, on hold." Over the next few weeks, everything unraveled. Dad's accounts got frozen. Gary's credit tanked so hard he couldn't even rent an apartment. Fiona's former co-workers spread word about her fraud, so every job application she sent out got laughed at. Tyler made sure none of it happened quietly. He filed lawsuits in my name for damages from the assaults stacked with evidence he'd collected. Watching Gary squirm in court while the judge called him reckless was almost better than pay-per-view. "You're enjoying this too much?" I muttered to Tyler one night as we ate pizza on my couch. He grinned. "Hey, I warned you. Legal revenge is slow, boring, and absolutely brutal. These people will be dealing with fallout for years. Gary's debt isn't going away. Fiona's blacklisted from her industry. And your dad? He's done." Sure enough, Dad eventually called me from a prepaid number. His voice cracked as he said, "They froze my accounts. Letters, liens, the whole circus. I can't even pay my utilities. You need to fix this." I leaned back in my chair, put him on speaker so Tyler could hear, and said, "Funny. When you showed up at my door with your fists, you weren't worried about my roof. Figure it out." Then I hung up. Tyler laughed so hard he spilled soda on my rug. Cold-blooded. I love it. By the end of that month, they were all in freefall. Gary fighting lawsuits and debt, Fiona unemployed and humiliated, Dad staring down the IRS with nothing left. The so-called golden kids had turned into walking disasters. And me? For the first time, I wasn't the weak one, the pushover, the safe player. I was the guy who survived, their fists, and then pulled the ground out from under them. Tyler looked at me one night, serious for once. "You know what the best part is? You didn't just win. You made sure they can't ever climb back up on your shoulders again. You're free." I didn't answer right away. I just sat there staring at the ceiling, feeling lighter than I had in years. Turns out the best revenge isn't yelling or fighting or even throwing punches back. It's sitting on your couch with a slice of pizza while the people who called you weak scramble to survive their own disasters. And honestly, it felt damn good. But the story wasn't quite over yet. A week later, I got a call from my grandfather. He wasn't the type to waste words, so when he said, "Come over, we need to talk," I knew something big was coming. Grandpa had always been quiet in the background. After Mom passed, he gave space instead of stepping in, maybe thinking Dad could handle it. But now with the fallout everywhere, Gary dodging debt collectors, Fiona sulking unemployed, and Dad yelling at anyone who'd listen, Grandpa apparently decided it was time to stop pretending. When I walked into his place, he was sitting at the dining table with a folder already waiting. "Sit," he said like a general calling in a soldier. He slid the folder across. "That's the property deed for the house your dad lives in. Has been in my name this whole time. I let him stay there after your mom died. Thought he'd step up for you kids. Clearly I was wrong. IRS couldn't touch the place anyway. Your dad never owned it." I blinked. "Wait, you own the house?" He nodded. "And after hearing what they did to you, that ends now. I'm not leaving it to him or to Fiona or Gary. It's yours. Effective immediately. They're out. It took me a second to process. Not just because I now technically owned my father's roof, but because it was the kind of revenge I hadn't even planned. It was like the universe tossed me the final nail for their coffin. "Grandpa, are you sure?" I asked. He smirked. "Your mom would have wanted it. You've carried yourself better than all of them combined. And frankly, I'm done rewarding parasites." The next part played out faster than I thought. Grandpa came with me to the house. Dad was in the driveway yelling into his phone, probably at some poor IRS agent. Fiona sat on the porch, scrolling through her phone like the world owed her something. Gary's beat-up car was parked half on the lawn, dented and barely running. Grandpa handed Dad the official notice. "You've been served notice," he said flatly. "The eviction process starts now." Dad's face turned the color of raw steak. "You can't do this. I'm your son and he's my grandson." Grandpa shot back, pointing at me. "The one you treated like dirt. You made your choices. Now live with them." Gary stormed up to me, shoving his finger in my chest. "You think you're tough now, hiding behind paperwork? You're still weak." I didn't even flinch. "Weak guys don't end up owning the roof over your head," I said calmly. "So pack your stuff before I start charging rent." Fiona finally exploded, throwing her phone onto the grass. "This is insane. I built my career. I sacrificed for this family, and you're giving it all to him. He's done nothing. Grandpa didn't even blink. You stole from your company to buy designer shoes. Don't act like a martyr." For once, they had no comeback. They just stood there fuming, realizing the ground had officially vanished under their feet. Over the next few weeks, I watched the eviction happen in real time. Gary begged me for just one more chance. Fiona showed up crying about how unfair life was. Dad went from angry to pathetic, telling me I owed him for raising me. One night, Dad even pounded on my apartment door. His voice cracked through the wood. "Son, listen. I made mistakes, but we're family. Don't do this. You can't throw me away." I opened the door just enough to look him dead in the eye. "You already threw me away years ago. I'm just finally returning the favor." Then I shut it in his face. Tyler, sitting on the couch with a controller in his hands, just whistled. That was savage. I'm proud. In the end, they all scattered. Gary disappeared into some basement apartment he could barely afford, drowning in debt. Fiona couch hopped between friends until the friends got sick of her. Then tried begging Grandpa for another chance. He told her to get a job like the rest of the world. Dad moved in with some distant cousin, stripped of his pride, his house, and his golden child fantasy. And me, for the first time in my life, I wasn't the forgotten son, the easy target, the weak one. I was standing on solid ground, not because I fought harder, but because I finally stopped playing their game. Tyler summed it up best one night while we were eating takeout. "You know what's funny? They always said you were weak, but the weak one isn't the guy sitting on his own couch with his own future, eating wings with his lawyer buddy. The weak ones are the ones crying in eviction notices and tax bills." I couldn't help but laugh. He wasn't wrong. Family doesn't always mean loyalty. Sometimes it just means you're the first one they aim their fists at when life doesn't go their way. But the beauty of being underestimated your whole life, when you finally hit back in the right way, they never see it coming. And honestly, watching them all collapse under the weight of their own entitlement felt even better than good.